Okay, so listen, it is difficult to imagine a more poisonous word in the English language than nigger, which is why many are taken aback to learn that word once adorned a hunting camp used by Texas Governor Rick Perry and his family. The camp used to be called Niggerhead, the word painted large on a rock at the entrance. Now, Perry's family leased the camp, and he says he hasn't been there since 2006. The camp name has been changed and the rock painted over, but when that happened exactly is a matter of dispute between Perry's people and the Washington Post, which published a lengthy article on it just today. So that word sounds outrageously backward in today's world, but in eras past, it was often used for land formations like hills and rocks. That's according to the Post. Herman Cain, one of Perry's presidential rivals, doesn't care for the connotation in any form.
My reaction is, that's just very insensitive. There isn't a more vile, negative word than the N-word, and for him to leave it there as long as he did before I hear that they finally painted over it, it's just plain insensitive to a lot of black people in this country.
All right, I want to talk more about this with CNN contributor Will Cain and LZ Granderson, a CNN.com contributor and senior writer at ESPN. I don't want to get into when the word was painted over or when the rock was moved or what have you. And we're saying the word for a reason, because I think if you don't say it, you actually sanitize it, right? So, LZ, how big of an issue is this for Perry?
I think it's huge. I don't see how you can stand on a stage across from President Obama, the first African-American president, with nigger hanging over your head, which is essentially what this story will be for him. This is the reason why, this is among other reasons why Chris Christie is still trying to be wooed, because Rick Perry has a lot of these type of skeletons in his closet, and the GOP knows that once he gets in front of Obama by himself, these type of stories are going to come out and derail his campaign.
Okay, so we have said, you know, in the context of the Post, that it was used for rock formations, and it is a part of our nation's history, and there were other names that that word was used in. So, Will, I'm wondering, how does a candidate recover, or can a candidate recover, once they've been associated with a controversy over the word nigger?
I don't know if they can, Don, and that's why I think we all need to be very careful here. It's so powerful, this word, that in 2006, when George Allen was running for senator of Virginia, he used the word macaca, a word that nobody had ever heard of, that is basically some French derivation of an African slang term that has the same weight carrying with it, the same connotation. So this word is so powerful, Don. It's such an atomic bomb on a campaign that I just think we need to be very careful and very responsible about how we treat this story. You know, that Washington Post story was full of anonymous sources. It was full of speculation. And I just don't know that I want to be a pundit that goes on TV and speculates about this any further. I think these are questions for Rick Perry to answer at this point.
I think that is a good point of view to have. But the question was, even I just said being associated in a controversy, whether it's true or not. I mean, that's tough to recover from.
It's so tough to recover, Don, that it might not be able to be recoverable, and that's why I'm saying we need to be careful about associating it. We just need to make sure we got everything right here.
All right. Thank you, Will. Thank you, LZ. Let's move on now. I want to switch to a man considered Perry's main rival, Mitt Romney. Many pundits still think that he is still the man to beat, but, you know, the other so-called flavor of the week candidates are winning straw polls and getting more press. Here's my question. You've seen how Herman Cain has surged. First it was Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry. What is the problem? What problem does the GOP have with Mitt Romney?
I think.
You want me to take that, Don?
Well, yeah, it's you, Will.
I think
let me see, Don. Let me make my list.
I just think that that's a huge problem that a lot of people have.
Go ahead, LZ. You said you think it's because he's a Mormon. That's what people in our meeting said. Hey, I think it may be because he's a Mormon, but people won't really talk about that, LZ.
Yeah, I mean, but think about it. How many times that you see GOP candidates tout their Christianity, and yet Mitt Romney barely, if ever, brings up his religion on his own admission. It usually is a question that's presented to him, and he responds very succinctly and very shortly. I think he's dodging bringing up the fact that he's a Mormon, and I think a lot of people in his base are reminded every time they see him that he's not quite like them, and because of that, they have this distance with him.
Is that his weak spot? Is that the issue behind this, Will?
No. In fact, LZ, it's absurd. Listen, we could make a list of why the GOP voters have a potential problem with Romney. Basically, we could sum it up by saying they're worried about his philosophy of government. He created the model for Obamacare. He's flirted with raising taxes when he was governor of Massachusetts. He flirted with the carbon tax as governor of Massachusetts. He was pro-choice before he was pro-life. I've rattled off 5 substantive reasons, and I travel in many conservative circles. I've got a pretty good exposure to that electorate, and not once have I heard somebody say, you know, I got a real problem with Mitt Romney, and it boils down to the fact that he's a Mormon.
That's because it's taboo to actually say that part out loud. Of course, you're not going to hear the taboo part of it, but that's what we say in closed doors, behind closed doors, in our tight circles to ourselves, that there's something not quite right about it. I agree with you. His policies, sure, on paper, there's a lot of things not to like, but there's such a dislike for President Obama, you would think that the entire party would get behind the guy who seems the most electable, but they're hesitant. And I think they're hesitant because of what's not being said as opposed to what is being said.
And I think that to count out that one part, I mean, I think people, to be honest here, that's probably one thing. It may not be the only thing, but not to mention that I think would be disingenuous for people to even not to mention or not to consider that. So listen, let's move on. Do you want to respond? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Don. Right. I'm sorry.
Let's talk about the primaries here, because Florida is forcing everything to move up by changing its primary to January. What's the rush here, Will?
Influence. Plain and simple influence. Look, is there any reason that Iowa should be such a great predicator of who's going to be president of the United States, or so influential in determining who the GOP candidate is for president of the United States? No, there's not. Iowa is not representative of the conservative electorate across this country. And if you want to know why we have ethanol subsidies, it's because Iowa is first in the list. And now Florida wants to get up a little higher in the list and exert some of their own influence.
Yeah, so Elsie, here, listen, I'm going to ask you the same question, but with this attached to it. The current crop of GOP candidates, are they that dissatisfied with that current crop that they are forcing? Why force a decision so soon? Because they're talking about Palin and they're talking about Christie. So why force a decision by moving primary season up if you're not satisfied with the current crop and you're still asking other people to potentially get into the race?
I think if I had to take a real stab at it, I would think that Social Security would be the main issue. What is it, 1 in 6 of the voters down there are relying on Social Security, and I think that they want to make sure that whatever candidate they end up with is someone who's on their side on that particular topic. They don't want to wait until what would normally be, March 6th before they get inside the primary, because by then there might be already momentum for one person who may not have the ideas about Social Security that they like. So they want to get in early on this conversation. They want to dictate as opposed to follow.
All right, Elsie, I don't see that Detroit Lions T-shirt you have on there. They're 4-0.
No.
I think you do.
They're 4-0.
You know, I'm from Texas. I'm from Dallas, Don. That was a jab at me.
Cowboys?
Yeah,
and
right.
they beat the Cowboys today, so he's like getting
No
subliminally he's trying to do it. Thank you, both of you.
Restore the roar, baby.
I didn't even see that. There it is. Oh.
All right, let's move on now. Thanks, guys.
31 points in the second half, dude. How do you even do that?
Oh, my gosh.
Is that even
Next
a football
time.
team down there you
Thank
got, Will? Talk to me.
I'm out of here.
See you later. We're moving
is
on.
Tony Romo great
Cut
or
the
terrible?
mics, everybody.